Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 255. We've got some quite interesting topics for this week, but as always, to give people time to join the stream, I'm going to start us off with a tune.
Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need, to wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wall. Your new God's sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride. By open speech and simple, 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace. Fill full the mouth of famine and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, what's love and heed and folly, bring all your hopes to naught. Take up the white man's burden, no tawdry rule of kings, but toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humor are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, a loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall weigh your gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly profit laurel, the easy ungrudged praise. Come down to search your manhood through all of thankless years. No age with dear bought wisdom, the judgment of your peers. Take off the white man's burden through all of thankless years.
And that was, of course, Chris Gard. If you like good music, especially if you like good music from someone who would not disagree with us politically, please go and check out Chris Gard's excellent channel on YouTube, and you can also follow him on X on Twitter, where we are also live at the moment. Good evening, gents. How are we going? Interesting week, I suppose. We're all still playing Wait a Bit for Rupert Lowe.
I think we can afford to give him a few weeks. If he's got something big planned, you don't want to screw it up.
Yes, I think you're probably right about that. I wish he would. I hope he does make a move. Let's put it.
Yeah, absolutely. If it's if I will be so disappointed if it's not. If it's just something like Restore Again, we need a bit more from you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see. I mean, I think Restore itself is a good idea, and I joined. Yeah. I think everyone on this panel is a member of Restore Britain. Yeah, if Rupert Lowe at the head of even half a dozen or so MPs could go a very long way to keeping a reform government honest. He really could. So yeah, let's. Well, I mean, we'll talk about that, I dare say, as we move along. Mitch, what was your first topic for this evening?
There's Trump in terms of the whole Greenland saga and that one quote he did about NATO seeming like, oh, we stayed back behind in our bases, and I go, yeah, diplomacy is not his forte, because I mean, I think it was true because I think it was true of the Germans, if I remember correctly, about in Afghanistan. But in terms of Brits, the Danes, the Canadians, and so on, that complete opposite is the case.
It was. I'll tell you what, Mitch. It was true of most of the European NATO countries to a greater or lesser degree. It wasn't true of the Canadians, and it certainly wasn't true of the Brits. But,
I do think, like, even for the Germans, I know they were more focused on trying to build stuff, but I mean, give them credit. Like, there is still a dangerous environment that they.
Oh yeah, no. Look, I'm not saying that. But when Trump said they tended to hang back a bit in their bases, he's actually not being. That's not a lie in terms of European NATO countries. It is a lie about Britain, and it is a lie about Canada. Britain easily had the biggest losses after the Americans in both Iraq and Afghanistan. And people forget the 130 people or whatever it was who were killed in Iraq from Britain. And of course, you see that, and you see the 470 or whatever it was from Iraq. And bear in mind, you're talking about 6 times that many wounded, maybe more. Some of whom, of course, had life-altering wounds, like losing limbs and all this kind of stuff. So, yeah. But what Trump said was completely unfair about British servicemen.
Whether it's unfair about the servicemen specifically, I mean, we were there for America's benefit. Like,
yes,
they should be thankful for every European soldier that lost their lives there.
Yeah,
I mean,
listen, it was all helping the Americans, but I mean, in terms of actual numbers of losses, the Brits were easily the second highest after the Americans, and I think the Canadians were the third, actually.
I think so.
Canadians lost quite a lot of troops in Afghanistan. They didn't take part in Iraq, of course.
Yeah,
and then even Australia lost 50 guys or something, and the Australians only sent actual forces.
Yeah, wasn't there? I know there was a funny case where I think it was like there was like one American unit about flying a Confederate flag in Afghanistan, and we all got bollocking. And then there was an Australian unit about all flying. I think it was like an SS flag or something.
Good. No, as you said, Mitch, Trump's forte is not diplomacy. And unlike the vast majority of world leaders, I don't think he gets his stuff written by speechwriters all the time. He does one-liners himself, you know.
You shouldn't need a speechwriter to not insult all your allies and the sacrifices they've made.
I'll be honest with you. I'm no great fan of the Europeans. I wish them no harm. I wish them well. But I certainly am against Britain joining any sort of European and EU military alliance. I don't want us to do that at all. It's also worth pointing out, as Morgoth pointed out on X not long ago, is that we've already got RAF jets getting ready to take part in more fighting if it happens with Iran or what have you.
One of the funny things was that you know which nation didn't send a single soldier to help America in Iraq or Afghanistan?
Go on.
It was their greatest ally, which is a weird thing. Which is weird, you know. And there's no criticism there for them. Strange.
Well, I mean, one of our Discord members put up a little British documentary from 1948 yesterday, in which we were talking about a terrorist incident in Tel Aviv, where the King David Hotel was blown up by terrorists. The thing was, they were Jewish terrorists blowing up British women and children. You know?
Yeah, and it's, I mean, I'm a whole Greenland thing of they're coming to some sort of deal, but then it's when we're hearing on the opposite. Oh, actually, there's not a deal been arranged yet between Denmark and America. And the other thing about Denmark is their left-wing party, like the Social Democrats, they're now in the majority lead in the polls because they've got an election later this year, I believe. And it's just, it's one.
I'm hearing the same thing, Mitch. You'll hear the Americans are going to have greatly expanded bases, which is what I thought was always going to happen, to be honest with you.
Which is funny because they could have already done all this.
Yeah, you wouldn't have needed to make this a big diplomatic deal, but that's Trump.
I have a feeling the deal is going to be everything they could have already done if they just simply asked.
Yeah, I mean, Denmark's a NATO member. They're always a pretty good NATO member.
Yeah.
You know, they sent troops to Afghanistan, and as far as I know, their troops are perfectly fine. Yeah,
and
I don't know. Yeah. And Iraq, I didn't know that.
And Iraq was a lot less popular with the other allies. So,
hardly anyone went to Iraq. The initial Iraq invasion was just America, Britain, and Australia, basically.
Yeah. Another Poles and Ukrainians sent some of their guys into Iraq. They just did that. I'm saying it's pretty much like same reasons as like Sardinia, Piedmont back in the Crimean War. They just did it just to get in our good books.
Yes, you want to be on the good side of people who you want to get military aid from and all the rest of it. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, as would be saying about the German soldiers. I mean, I'm not surprised about because Germany has fallen far from the old Prussian heritage we used to have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And of course, the German military, the Bundeswehr, was deliberately made.
Yeah,
not
deliberately, very deliberately.
Not traditional. Yeah, it was made untraditional on purpose after World War II, largely by the Americans. It's got to be said.
Yep.
So. And then they've had successive governments in Germany that are not in the least bit pro-German, and then you wonder why the German armed forces are in the state they are, and then you look at someone like Keir Starmer, and you wonder why the British forces are in the state they are, because no British Prime Minister, including Conservative ones, has spent any money on them in the last decade and a half.
It's like in the case of Germany, they keep having to purge their special forces every couple of years because it always just because the special forces, obviously, they're going to have real patriotic Germans who actually they might post, let's say, like the old black, white, and red flags or something, and that's enough for them to get a block. It's not even like anything to do with Third Reich. Just post it, like stuff from Kaiser Wilhelm's time, over 100 years back, is enough to get you in trouble.
And they are guys who can actually do something.
Yeah, so, I mean, the only other thing I would say just about the Afghanistan story is that the British forces fought very bravely in Afghanistan. They did. But you know what? We didn't have enough troops there. And we were on the edge of losing Helmand province. And the only reason we didn't is they had to send the US Marine Corps in to help us because we didn't have enough troops there.
Wasn't it also like the L-85A1 we went to Afghanistan with, and it was just That's why.
Oh, initially it was shit, yes, but the A2 version, which came in years ago now, is fine. I mean, I don't like the SA80 at all. I think it's ergonomically terrible.
Yeah.
But I mean, the British Army is in the process of getting rid of it, so good. And I bet the next British rifle is not a bullpup. I almost guarantee it. In fact, I've handled them. Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't fired them because they were long after my time. But it's very heavy.
Yeah.
For its size.
Really heavy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not much lighter than the old SLR that I used when I joined up in 1983.
Yeah.
It's not much lighter than that, but it's much shorter range, and the cartridge is much less powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, I was quite surprised actually. That a modern car door will stop a 5.56mm cartridge at 200, 300 yards. It'll stop it.
Yeah.
Well, there's no way you'd stop a 7.62 round with a car door. I mean, all right, modern car doors are pretty thick these days, but even so, And this was the thing I was watching was a British Army demonstration actually, and they were pointing out if someone's taking shelter behind a door, you've got to use a GPMG to go through it if it's beyond like 100 meters or something. So but that's the fact of the matter is, I mean, the Royal Marines in Afghanistan managed to maintain a battalion combat group from only 3 units of Royal Marines.
Yeah.
The British Army, from the whole of the British Army, could barely maintain a brigade combat group, which was like 3 or 4 battalions.
And that's the Royal Marines as well, who I think like the only armed part of our armed forces that actually come out with good recruitment adverts.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Royal Marines have still not been totally taken over, but I can tell you, even the Royal Marines, they want to change the tests because there are a lot of high-ups in the Ministry of Defence who want to get women through the commando course, even though the Royal Marines themselves know that if they do take women through that, they really won't be able to do the job.
I don't think it's the Royal Marines who want to change the test.
It's the Ministry of Ministry of Defence and very senior officers.
I mean, all credit to the Royal Marines for holding out for so long on this stuff, because I'm sure they get a bollocking all the time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, even the parachute regiment had to get a couple of women through, and the parachute regiment certainly didn't want to. I mean, the thing that really annoys me about this is that both the British Army and the United States Marine Corps have done extensive checks on this stuff and tests in the field. They've had, in the British Army's case, they had sections, which is your basic subunit of like 8 guys, and they've done it with platoons. They haven't, I don't think the British did it with companies, but I think the US Marine Corps did, which is like 100 guys or so. And they tried it with all women sections and mixed sections against traditional all men sections. And then they did the same thing with platoons. And in all cases, with no exceptions, the all male units always outperformed the other 2 by quite a long way. Whether it was all women or whether it was mixed. Because women do not belong in that role. They're not strong enough. 99% of them are not strong enough. They don't have the bone density to do the physical stuff, carrying 60 or 70 pounds of kit. And if you can't carry 60 or 70 pounds of kit, you can't be an infantry soldier. It's as simple as that. But then, it's like recently I've been watching some stuff in American court cases where they've been talking about banning trans people from women's sports, because it's not fair on the women, and it's also dangerous for the women in some sports, because they're so much bigger and heavier boned and all the rest of it. The thing is, they'll recognise that, but then they'll still try and put chicks in the infantry, and they still make them cops. And particularly in Britain, where most cops are not armed, women are just not big enough to do that job. Certainly not in a riot situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even you give a woman a riot baton against a big bloke, that is absolutely worthless.
You take it off her
Yeah.
and shove it where the
What are
sun
you
don't
doing?
shine. Yeah, exactly.
Get off, you annoying little fly. That's all that is, like trying to hit you with that.
Well,
And then with the
you guys might have watched that video that I put up in the Discord where they had some of the strongest, biggest women in the world
Yeah.
against dwarves, male
Yeah.
dwarves, and the male dwarves won.
Yeah. Unless it was like a real leg thing where your tiny little dwarf legs don't work, then yeah.
But even
no
then,
chance.
when it was a
No
relay
chance, yeah.
race and you had to carry the other side,
Yeah.
the dwarfs were able to carry the women more easily than the women could carry the dwarfs.
Yeah.
Men are just a lot stronger.
And with the military, there's all sorts of really important roles that women could do in that just fine.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Because the military is not just, frontline infantry. It needs a lot more than that. And I don't know. I don't know why that's never good enough.
I mean, look, I don't think women should be in any of the combat arms. I don't think they're good in tanks and armored vehicles, particularly in things like the British tank, which doesn't have an auto loader. So you've got to grab a two-piece 120 millimeter shell and load it as quickly as possible. And how quickly you load that can be the difference between your tank being knocked out and not.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And also, you've got to load your tank with scores of these shells.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if there are no women in that role. They just aren't. I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, how many women do you know that are mad keen on cars and vehicles in general? Not many, really.
Yeah.
But listen, I wouldn't have women in those roles. I wouldn't have women on warships. I've got to say, I wouldn't. I just wouldn't have them in frontline roles. I wouldn't make them fighter pilots. I wouldn't do any of those things. And I tell you what, if you didn't, you would strengthen your units.
Yeah. I mean, with the women on ships as well, you've got long deployments and, well, things happen. And you can't have pregnant women on a warship.
Yeah, well, you can't. And of course, whenever a military unit deploys overseas and it's got a lot of women in it, what they do is suddenly all of them become pregnant because you can't deploy them.
Yep.
And they don't want to go. So I'm pregnant. And that happens in every army, including the Americans, who have a load of women in it. I noticed somebody mentioned Israel as a thing about women in the military. Now, the Israelis did actually try women in combat units. They don't do it anymore.
Oh, don't they?
No, they stopped because they were no good. The women who got killed and wounded on that day when the PLO did their stuff, they were doing things like manning radar screens and looking at video screens and stuff like that. They weren't combat soldiers. The Israeli Defense Force stopped putting women in combat roles some years ago because it just doesn't work. As someone earlier in the chat said, if you put a woman in a unit, it changes the way the guys in that unit behave. Because they'll do things to try and stop the woman getting killed or captured that they wouldn't do for a bloke. And also you've got, I remember I was watching this thing about the Royal Engineers in Afghanistan. They were doing IEDs, getting rid of unexploded bombs and mines and all this kind of shit. And one of the sub-commanders, like a platoon officer or something, was a woman. And she actually said on the interview, she said, when we get in a firefight, I lay on the ground and let the boys do their stuff. That's what she said.
Okay. I mean, at least she's honest.
Probably sensible. But you know what? She shouldn't be the commanding officer of that unit.
No. There's a weird, there seems to be a weird kink they have with pregnant women being in fighting. Like you saw in the Avatar film, the second one, there was a Spider-Man one where there's like pregnant Spider-Woman.
Never watched either of those, mate, so I wouldn't have seen it anyway.
No, but it's really weird. Like just pregnant women in fighting. Why do you want that?
I see Steve is saying that there used to be a women's army corps in the US Army. And the British Army used to have a women's Royal Army Corps, the same sort of thing. I actually went out with a women's Royal Army Corps girl for a while when I was in the army, and she said, and they had just then, this was in 83 or 84, they had just taken over doing their own guards instead of having blokes doing it on their camps. So they're gate guards and all this kind of thing, which of course was serious back then because the provisional IRA was still a thing. And this chick said to me, she said, I wouldn't really be able to shoot anyone. And she was in the army. She said, I couldn't shoot anyone. It's like... I don't know.
Because like I'd even want like the people behind the desks in any sort of military role. You're just a desk person. I still want you to be able to shoot if you have to.
Yes.
Otherwise go work for some business.
All soldiers should have basic training of shooting. Yes, of course they should. Training and some basic field craft. But I tell you, even at the Britannia Royal Naval College, Dartford in Devon, the female candidates. Now you can imagine that the field exercises that Royal Navy officers get to do are not that terrible because they don't really expect Royal Navy officers to spend a great deal of time on the moors, But they do a couple of exercises out in the field. And I can tell you, because my son went there, the only way the female candidates get through those is because the blokes help them and do half their stuff. That's the only way the women pass those. Anything slightly physical, women fucked, basically.
Yeah, as soon as you remember the German army, the thing about the Bundeswehr was, I think at one point there was an Arctic warfare NATO exercise where the Germans had broomsticks for guns because Ursula von der Leyen was so bad in handling
my dad's army.
It's funny how our system, like, literally, you can be the biggest failure on the planet, but you still get rewarded with higher positions. Like Angela Merkel just hated that woman so much she just bugged her off over to Brussels.
I tell you, it's what, according to two-tier Keir Starmer, I'm still liable for military service. In fact, I'm still liable for military service for about another 4 years. According to two-tier Keir Starmer. I mean, talk about Corporal Jones, Don't panic, Mr. Mannering. I mean, frankly, if the triad called me up, I'd say put me in prison because I wouldn't fight for two-tier Keir Starmer under any circumstances. I just wouldn't. I'd say no. If they wanted to send me to the Baltic states or something like that, I'd just say no, mate. Put me in jail. And people know, I hope, I want my son to leave the Navy. He won't because he's still pursuing his career. But he knows I don't want him to be in it anymore because I just don't see any circumstances how he's going to be doing so good for Britain at the moment. If we had a totally different government, a totally different set of elites, I'd encourage people to join up. But I haven't encouraged young men to join the military for a long time now.
I mean, I guess for him, it's mostly just, regardless of the state of the military, where else can he fly fighter jets like that?
Well, it's that. And also he's got this dream of getting his own warship eventually, if the Royal Navy have any warships left by the time that happens. I noticed there's another frigate going to be disposed of this year, leaving the Royal Navy with 5 frigates. We'll have 5 frigates and 6 destroyers later this year, and that is 11 major escorts. And during the Falklands War in 1982, the Royal Navy had over 70 frigates and destroyers. We will have 11 later this year. And not all of those are available, by the way. A couple of them are in deep refit.
In terms of World British Standing, they would never call a draft. I mean, you get the boomers who write for the Daily Telegraph and the Times and that kind of cohort. I genuinely think they are stupid enough to try and do it because they don't understand how hollowed out the country is. They're still thinking it's like the Britain there was back in the Thatcher's time.
How much good would it do, Mitch? I mean, it takes a minimum of 6 months to make a halfway trained soldier, right? Absolute minimum 6 months. You put them in the front line less than that, as you can see in Ukraine, where the Ukrainians are regularly slaughtered as quickly as they're sent to the front line because they're not trained enough. It takes you a minimum of 6 months to train guys. Who's going to do the training? The British Army is so tiny now, they can't even expand the training.
Yeah, I saw that. They don't have the people to train new recruits anymore.
I mean, during World War One, when the British Army was hugely expanded, right? The British Army at the start of the war, what got called the old contemptibles, because the Kaiser supposedly said that Britain had a contemptible little army. Yeah, but Britain's contemptible little army in 1914 was 250,000 men, and that is not counting Canadians and Australians and New Zealanders and South Africans and Indians and you name it. It was 250,000 men without all those other people.
Not to mention, they were the best troops in the whole world.
They were extremely well trained after the Anglo-Boer War. The lessons of the Anglo-Boer War really changed the British Army and made it an army of sharpshooters, basically. Yeah. But that army was 250,000 strong. The British Army today is 70,000, and far too many of those are women. If it was fighting in Ukraine, even if we were winning, it would be destroyed in 6 months just from casualties. If we were winning, if we were losing, it would be destroyed quicker than that. And it's got big gaps, like there's nowhere near enough main battle tanks. There's no replacement for the Warrior infantry fighting vehicle. Instead, we're going to be relying on great big armored boxes on wheels called Boxer, which I reckon are going to be really enormous targets. The British Army air defences are a joke at the moment. The British Army artillery has never been weaker than it is now, and the artillery was actually a traditionally strong British army. But yeah, it's in a mess. But so is the Royal Navy, so is the Royal Air Force. All of the British Armed Forces are in a fucking mess. And Starmer's going around threatening the Russians. The Russians must be laughing.
I think Mitch is right, though. The boom, do you remember the election? Rishi Sunak rolls out conscription, and the boomers loved that. They thought that.
Well, of course they did, because it won't include them.
Exactly. Send the Zoomers off to war in Ukraine, and these fuckers. Most of these boomers, they had every opportunity to serve themselves, but they had better things to do. But now, when it comes to the Zoomers, their grandkids, fuck them, send them. They can live. They can sort of have some valor through their grandchildren dying. Boomers.
I guess it will stop them having to leave them any money. That's probably why they want to do it. Steve in the chat is saying, ironically, Britain has its biggest population in history, but a small military. The British military hasn't been this small since the 1600s. Was the last time the British military was as small as it is today. But when you talk about this big British population, most of them are not British. And if you look at Muslims, for example, more British Muslims have joined the Islamic State than the British Armed Forces. And that is just a fact. More of them have joined the Islamic State, which is an enemy terrorist organization, than have joined the British Armed Forces.
And it's not like the army was trying to put them off. They were trying really hard to get them in. It just didn't work.
Yeah, they were. But no, because why are they going to fight for the British? They don't consider themselves British, which is why, of course, Steve Laws is entirely correct.
Again, you see the clips of people going around asking diversity, would they fight for Britain? All, every time. Oh, hell nah. I'm out of here. Yeah.
Yeah.
What you got here for us, Mitch?
I'll play it.
I have to say one thing about housing, because nobody ever says this. I am very protective of people that already own a house, of which we have millions and millions and millions. And because we have had such a good run, the house values have gone up tremendously. And these people have become wealthy. They weren't wealthy. They become wealthy because of their house. And every time you make it more and more and more affordable for somebody to buy a house cheaply, you're actually hurting the value of those houses, obviously, because the one thing works in tandem with the other. And I don't want to do anything that's going to hurt the value of people that own a house who, for the first time in their lives, are walking around the streets of whatever city they're in, very proud that their house is worth $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. Now, if I want to really crush the housing market, I could do that so fast, and people could buy houses, but you would destroy a lot of people that already have houses. In some cases, they've mortgaged their house, and the mortgage would be very low. And all of a sudden, the mortgage without any changes becomes very high, and they end up losing the house.
Oh, what? I hate every bit of this.
Well, he
And
said the quiet. He said the quiet part out loud for him.
Yeah.
That's what he did, and you know that's exactly the same. In fact, it's worse in Britain. It's also the same in Australia. It's the same in Canada.
I mean, like his arguments, like, okay, so everyone needs a house. If the housing price dropped by 75% for everyone, well, it doesn't matter. You can sell your house and then buy another house if you've already got one, right? That just doesn't play out. And also, like Americans, you can get like 99% mortgages. You don't own that house. The bank owns 99% of it. You buy a $500,000 house. You don't own that. That's not your net worth. I hate that.
Well, I mean, also look at this idea that Trump had. What was it? 55-year mortgages.
Yeah.
I mean, you buy a house when you're 25, and if you survive, you might have paid it off by the time you're 80. I mean, give me a break.
And not like the price, what that actually does. Rather than spending $200,000 on a house, you're actually spending $500,000 with these huge mortgages like that. Ugh.
Yeah, and it's like I think like the average house buying age these days in Britain and America is like 62. Like it's literally just a boom.
Wow.
Literally, only people buying houses these days are the boomers, and if you're very very lucky, as a millennial or Zoomer,
boomers trading between each other, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's like I think like the only demographic of Zoomers actually buying houses are the OnlyFans whores. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing, of course, with his logic. He's sitting here and crying about and saying, "Oh, what about the people that already own homes?" Like, there's no one for them to sell those homes to, so that value is itself a bubble. So actually, if anything, righting the housing market is actually the long-term sensible position to take, even from the argument he's making. And of course, there are lots of ways that you can mitigate that sort of thing that no one's willing to try or explore. It would be a little messy, it would, but like also, what's the point? I'm just going to sit on this problem until it really does explode, because I would rather not upset the apple cart now. It's like brilliant.
Get the boomer votes.
Yeah.
Never upset the boomers. Rule one of politics.
What's that guy's name? Auspilled or something, like that Australian guy, like the Zoomer fella who. Like, he's the son of a real estate developer, and he's like basically one of our guys, even though financially it would screw him over too, because he's saying, well, we have to get rid of immigration because it's screwing over people's ability to get a house. But in so doing, he's going against his own family interest. Because his family
it's creating a bubble of that is artificially raising the prices.
Yeah,
and of course that's keeping young people out of the housing market, and that's that's the whole point that everyone's talking about. But I mean, as Ataman said, there are things you can do to mitigate against that. Yes, some people are gonna lose theoretical money that they don't actually have, but that's about all, really.
Yeah, and it's like it's like I don't know, like Margaret Thatcher. I mean, I know like people in our circles don't like her for a whole lot of reasons, but I would say like one thing she was correct about was, if you want to avoid a revolution or want to avoid any trouble, you want people, especially young people, owning their own homes, or at least have a good chance to do so. In today's economy, that's basically naff, and it's a position where you just create an entire generation full of people who they've got nothing to lose. So why don't we just blow up the whole system?
Yeah, military theorists pointing out how this is again just like happened in Rome, when the aristocracy just owned everything for a while, and everyone was just basically forced to be slave labor on their estates.
Well, this is one of the things that Julius Caesar was against, and was trying to get small farmers back into the game and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Alan Bassard in the chat is talking about Kanzuk. And I have got to say, I am an enormous Kanzuk supporter, you know, Canada, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, but only if we had base governments in all those 4 countries. And we sure don't now.
Yeah. No.
And it would be a disaster at the moment.
Do you think? I think that could probably well just flow naturally from, you know, when one base government gets in, it could sort of affect the others maybe.
I think with Canada, it's really like
It's tricky,
It's tricky because it's like, well, you got, for example, Trump. He's talking about applying 100% tariff upon Canada because they're trying to make a deal with the Chinese, which a week ago Trump was in favor of, but now he's
it's all over the place,
yeah, and it's just I understand, like, from an American point of view, you don't want, you know, you let your next door neighbor making deals with your rival, but it's also a matter of, well, you can't gob off about annexing them.
Yeah.
And then often be surprised that they're making deals with your rivals.
Yeah. Like some people say, oh, it's insane, like Canada doing these deals with the Chinese. But is it? Right. You know, like it would be so easy for Trump to just be like the Chinese, because the Chinese, they just approach all these countries as friends and go, hey, you want to do some trade? Maybe we could build an airport or something. Just, they you know, and then you got Trump saying, we're going to invade you, annex you, tariff you, just real hostile attitude. Yeah.
I get why Trump doesn't like the Europeans. Don't forget, I think Trump really wants to end the Ukraine war, and the Europeans don't. That's
I don't think Trump really does.
I think he does. He's not interested in giving Ukraine a blank check anymore.
No, I think Trump, like, for example, Trump, he tried to negotiate a deal with Putin. Putin was like, well, what do you have to give me? You got nothing. And Putin's just like, I'm just going to carry on. And Trump felt so insulted by that, he just carried on supporting Ukraine. I don't think it's going to happen. And also, you got the fact of the State Department, we've got their own incentives, like embedded within their structure to just carry on with all these sort of interventionist crap about, you know, oh, we got to spread democracy. Oh, we got, you know, because it's like a lot of it is personal grudges. Like you got Victoria Nuland, like her ancestors were Jews who were hard done over by the Tsarist regime from like 100 years back, 120 years back. So there's also that angle. And then you've got basically a lot of boomers who just can't get to grips with the fact that Russia now is not the same as what the Soviet Union was.
That's very true. That is very true. There's a lot of people who've just gone back to thinking, oh, it's the evil empire again, you know.
I'm also sure, like, you see some people talking about the various different European leaders sort of being hostile to Trump. I'm sure they've all had contact from agents within the American deep state who are going, don't worry, it's just 4 years, then he's gone and it's back to business as usual, back like to what you know, back to the agreement we had when we placed you in power.
I still hope that you know, someone will succeed Trump on the Republican side, because in general, the Democrats are not good for anyone, if you ask me.
But if you look at like the Virginia election, like the Republicans have shown that they haven't learned anything. Like they're just the same party. He hasn't transformed them in any sort of definitive way, and they're just going to go back to business as usual as well.
Probably true.
I mean, Dominic Cummings mentioned at one point, like Hillary Clinton and what's his name, John Kerry, I think his name was. They've been having discussions with a lot of Democrat hierarchy about when the Democrats get back in, they're going to tear out the First and Second Amendments. And they're also going to, you got the Democrats also, they're gobbling off about how they're going to arrest everyone who's associated with ICE. And it's just one thing as well. I just think it's like a groundswell for civil war brewing up, because you've got, you're telling an entire agency full of young men with an agency and initiative, oh yeah, you on the chopping block if we get in. Well, that's exactly that's what fucking Cato the Elder, not Cato the Elder, Cato the Younger tried to do Caesar's legions. And look how well that went for him.
I think if they were smart, the Democrats should run, at least campaign as we're the sensible, normal people again. And that, so Trump's last like Trump's victories is against Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris, like possibly the worst two candidates you could possibly find in all of America. I don't. Yeah, if they get Gavin Newsom, I think he does have a good chance if he just plays it normal and sensible.
Well, with anyone who doesn't know anything about California, but yeah, okay.
I mean, would be similar as what they did in Virginia. I mean, they had a Democrat guy who was a second guy who said he wants to see his Republican candidates' children get killed or something.
Yeah, still one.
We'll have to see what happens with that. Mitch, did you have anything else you wanted to add on your opening topics here?
The only thing I'd say, like, I hope like Rupert Lowe creates his empire, because it's like, well, I'm preparing to scrap my Reform membership, but it's like they're sending me an email earlier today saying, would you like to be our by-election candidate for that seat up in Manchester?
Really?
Yeah, I bet they did. Until Hope Not Hate got hold of you, mate, and then you'd be kicked out immediately. Yeah.
So it's like you've got in this by-election, you've got there's rumours there's going to be Azir Youssef for George Galloway. You've got Andy Burnham. You've got who else was it?
Zach Balansky.
Yeah. At this point, I'm wondering who the Tories and Liberal Democrats are going to field, because it's probably going to be a record for a by-election with a most insufferable candidate.
Yep.
Yeah, some pretty bad people in that lineup.
I told you earlier, like, this is just looking at the future. It's a bunch of traitors and Browns. That's all you get.
Yeah, it's not looking that good, I've got to say. Adamant, did you have a first topic for this week?
No. About halfway through the week, I was like, I can't wait to go on the weekend and rant about this thing for like 20 minutes. And I can't actually remember what the thing is now, though. So
it's obviously not as important as it seemed.
There was Davos. I've not really, I don't know. I haven't really paid any attention to it, though.
Oh,
yeah,
there was the rabbi who. Who's actually a Russian, by the way, and lives in Israel. Right, he's a Russian.
Course, yeah.
He used to be the chief rabbi of Moscow, I think, and he moved because he didn't like the war, which tells you how much you can rely on certain people. And he was as Russian as everybody else until he moved to Israel. Okay, but he has moved to Israel now, and there he is at Davos saying that the rise of the far right and the increasing anti-Semitism means that the Jews have to cooperate with the Muslims
against the old Europeans. That was his term.
The old Europeans, the so-called old Europeans, is what he actually said. But yeah, I thought that was pretty amazing. And I mean, Bo and the other chap on the Lotus Eaters did a little story on it, and very true.
I never watched the clip, but it is funny how Finkelstein was accused of this, and everyone was immediately like, no one thinks that. That's not happening. And then, like, literally within like 2 weeks, this guy comes out and makes the exact comments.
Yeah, and he's moved from Russia to Israel, and he criticizes the far right in Europe, who of course want ethno-states, when he's gone to live in an ethno-state that has literally got being an ethno-state written into its constitution.
It's not technically an ethno-state, though, because anyone can convert to Judaism, even though they never put it into converting anyone.
Yeah, and not many adults want bits of their dick chopped off, but yeah, okay.
Strangely enough, it only ever seems to be pornographers that convert to Judaism.
Strange.
Like, if they weren't already.
It's funny, though.
But do we think, what about Jenrick? Do we think he's secretly converted?
Who knows? Don't forget, it goes down in the female line rather on Small Hats.
Yeah, but I mean, like, he's his wife is Jewish, obviously, and then he's coming out with policies like sticking the Star of David of all things above every port of entry into the Britain.
Oh my, what as an ownership thing?
No, don't be silly.
The whole like Islamic Jewish alliance is like, well, it's like I know, I've seen some centre right types go like, oh, this is anathema, this is like an oxymoron. I go, well, I mean, if you look at the history, like for example, you look up the Umayyad conquest of Spain, who were the ones who opened up the gates of Toledo, or when the Christian armies tried to retake Budapest from the Ottomans, who were the ones funding the Ottoman garrison there?
Yeah.
Or who would even think about it, Mitch?
Or
who could you mean?
Yeah. Or there was another one. Yeah, it's funny how that works, isn't it? That
opening the gates of Toledo, indeed, kind of helps, doesn't it? The enemy, I mean.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't know, I think it was something like when Eugene of Savoy tried to retake Budapest, like it was something like it was like of the 10,000 Ottoman defenders, like 2,000 of them were Jews. That was pretty much the entire male Jewish population in Budapest at the time. So yeah, it's all, yeah. I mean,
but where would we be without our Judeo-Christian values?
Indeed, yes, Judeo-Christian values, yes.
Yeah,
there's no difference between the Christian God and the Jewish God, which is not true, but okay.
To Sonny Jim's point there, the net negative, that's being dropped by everyone now because they've got the new AI money god, which is all that. I mean, that's what's really driving the anti-net zero stuff. And
well,
of course,
they want to get rid of cash, don't they?
Yeah, but like there's the now with all these data centers, the push for getting rid of net zero carbon, it won't help us. Our energy prices will still be going up.
Yeah. Well, it will, but
they've nuked any ability
be.
for us to actually have an efficient power grid or even if on paper they ditch all that stuff. The problem is that a lot of the industry has already been reshaped around it, and it's not going to be reshaped back anytime soon. Partly because we lack the expertise as well. But it's like another instance of this, especially with the AI thing, is you've got like the Chinese are trying to move into the memory chip manufacturing market and have been for quite a few years now. And it's like America is obviously quite against this. They don't want to see a geopolitical rival break this sort of cartel with the big three companies. But it's like, okay, but these moves on AI, which have totally undermined like the ability for like small businesses and even regular consumers at home to have like computational power, it is going to make Chinese memory chips on the market a necessity with time. A new market of GPUs and RAM and everything else is going to have to open up.
But don't you think we should be making those?
Yeah, we should, but because black people can't do it, so therefore no one here can do it.
Yeah.
But this is why. I mean, this is why
the Industrial Revolution first, isn't it?
Yeah, but this is why like silicon chip manufacturing happens in Taiwan. This is why America spends all this money defending Taiwan on the other side of the world from China. It's because black people can't make chips in America, therefore no one in America is allowed to make chips, and it's the same for the rest of the West.
I think Rob Biscuits is entirely correct about this. They want cloud computing. They want people renting their computers because just imagine the amount of control that would give the government over the internet.
You say that, but when everything's run through SSL web requests, how can they enforce any of these restrictions, like ID restrictions on social media that they want to bring down?
Wouldn't it be easier because they'll just make the companies do it?
No, because that's basically the same way that VPNs work, isn't it? So they would never be able to get rid of a VPN if all computing was done that way. I mean, maybe I assume they just haven't thought about it all that deeply because these we're talking about deeply unserious people here, but
I think the main push is just the owning nothing and being happy sort of agenda that they want. No, we won't own anything. They will, though.
Yeah,
And that's
I don't use any cloud stuff, I've got to
No.
say, Richard Hughes. And I agree with what you say there. Keep your data off it. And if you're into films and what have you, or in terms of digital stuff, you need to own a hard copy. You know.
I know in Nvidia they've done like cloud computing for that you can play games on for a while now, and it's as you expect. They sort of limit your time, and then you have to queue to like access it as well. But you can pay to sort of get ahead in the queue, so you can pay more. And that's the future, really, isn't it?
I did think Royal Biscuits is right that you'll have to have a digital ID to have a computer. That's part of the point of digital ID laws that they're bringing in Britain and Australia and all over the bloody place. They'll use the excuse of, oh, we're trying to keep children off of social media for some unknown reason. Not off of porn sites, off of social media. But that's an excuse. It's not what they're interested in. If anyone thinks that modern liberal governments have any interest in stopping children being exposed to porn, you must have a very strange idea of what modern liberal governments are.
Wasn't there that one female MP who suggested that they should make like child appropriate pornography to teach children how to like have sex a nice way?
Yeah,
and they could show it at school.
There was producers at the BBC as well that were behind her on that and advocating for that. I can't remember which one it was, but yeah, I'm pretty sure she's one of the people now screaming about the grok thing. But this is the thing though, like, is the AI bubble going to burst? Because like at the moment, like they're losing like fuck tons of money, and of course they will, because that's part of like the development cycle, right? Like the reason you can use grok and ChatGPT, and the reason when you talk to it, it seems like a Down syndrome, idiot. But it's because essentially they're just using it to gather data, like immense amounts of data, so they can refine it into. Because I mean, I've used AI both in my job and in other things that are more hyper focused for a particular task, and they're pretty good. It's only when you get to these large language models that they suddenly sound like lobotomy victims, and
but they're getting better. They're getting better, Alan.
Slowly, yeah. But there's sort
and
of,
it's because, as you say, because everyone using them is improving them.
You're field testing them essentially for them. I don't imagine they're going to be public use for forever or even for a very long time. I imagine as soon as they've got enough data to give one company a competitive edge over the others, I think they'll probably shut out the public more broadly, and it'll probably they'll break it up into more hyper focused disciplinary units.
It's like AI illustrations, Adam, and they're still not that great. You still get that uncanny valley thing.
Well, here's the other thing as well. Someone else pointed out to me.
It's improving, and I have even seen how much it's improved over the last 2 years.
But here's the thing, though, right? Someone else. I mean, I was listening to this thing, and it was this guy, and he was a programming engineer, and he was like, and they were actually an MLM engineer, and they were like, if you ask an AI to make an image of a train with legs, it will give you an image of a train with legs, but the train still travels over a track, right? Because it doesn't know what a track is. It doesn't really even understand what a train is.
It's a long way from real artificial intelligence at the moment, but it is improving, and it's
I think there's kind of a ceiling to that. I think it will get better, but I think ultimately it's only ever going to just be copying the broader findings from the internet, and essentially from Reddit and Wikipedia.
All I'll tell you, Mitch, Adam, is that I know that there are military people looking at AI quite seriously. Not for something that's going to come online in the next 5 years, but in the next 10, 15 years,
Well, I see there's engineers now at all these companies who think that by 2035 they'll have actual artificial general intelligence, which I think is very optimistic.
Yeah,
that's a huge leap from where we are now.
But they are building, like, if you look at America specifically, they're building the data centers in like places like rural Ohio, like very central areas. They're not building anything on the coast. Silicon Valley's right there, but they won't build it there.
No, they don't want that crap there. Mm.
No.
I have seen they apparently they need to triple the power output of the entire United States for some of these plans, which is insane. And just the infrastructure to, support all that energy. It
And
just
look at
seems
a modern
impossible.
war, Tharium. Look at a modern
Yeah.
war in Ukraine. What are the Russians targeting in Ukraine?
Energy now, yeah.
Ukrainians' energy resources. And of course, the net zero stuff just makes all that so much worse because wind and solar are completely unreliable. And you can't store it anyway because the batteries are totally impractical. So the only really practical clean energy is nuclear, which, the Greens and many of these other morons are against. And you're not allowed, if you're Britain sitting on some of the best, most efficient and cleanest coal in the world, you're not allowed to open a couple of really good, modern, automated coal mines in Wales and provide loads of really good jobs, not stripped off of the waste at the coalface, but running computers and machinery for Welsh guys.
I also think that the entire perceived benefit by our elites of AI is entirely mired in them still holding these sort of like bizarre egalitarian views that don't make any sense. Like the company I work for, we're actually kind of considered to be quite on the cutting edge of using AI for what we do. And it's beneficial. I mean, the AI we use is very good and it works because it's very hyper focused on like very specific things. And it is good because it frees us up to do, from a lot of quite time consuming tasks to do a lot of generally quite good tasks. And of course, this is what every previous revolution, like industrial revolution or any other such, does, is that the innovations essentially just free up people's time to take up more important tasks. But of course, what's the point of that when we're going through demographic replacement?
Yeah,
specifically with people that are low IQ. Jordan Peterson makes this point where he goes on about that like you need some jobs for like the retards essentially.
Military theorist has an idea on this, Adam, and that you can see on the screen at the moment.
Yeah,
I don't think they're right, but yes, they may have a point.
They absolutely believe that.
I think what they'd really love is to turn people into batteries.
What you mean? You mean like in
no, the Matrix? Yeah,
plug
people
Matrix,
in. Yeah, plug people in to feed the AI. That would be genius.
I mean, ironically, in the original Matrix concept, they were going to make that the humans were going to be RAM. But because it was in the 90s, they changed it to batteries because trying to explain what RAM was to the general public was too big of an ask.
Yeah, I can believe that. Guys, can I just interrupt you a second to do a little channel admin bit? Guys, if you want to support the channel, please hit the like button. If you hit that thumbs up button, it takes a second and it really does help the channel. It doesn't cost anything. Also, if you want to support the channel, you can do so via Entropy. The link is at the top of the chat on YouTube. And also, if you want to ask anyone on the panel or all of the panel any questions, you can put a question in there on Entropy and we will address them towards the end of the stream. And that's all I had to say for the minute. So, Adam, did you have anything else you wanted to say about AI and the stuff we've been talking about here before I go on to Tharium?
No, not from me.
Well, I'd like to add on to that is what you're seeing in schools now, the effect that AI is having on kids. It is just making them into absolute dribbling retards who can't think. Like it's just you're seeing like from like 4 or 5, they're on ChatGPT, just asking ChatGPT for everything. They don't know how to think anymore. Just AI gives them the answer, and it is.
I remember being told this was happening with pocket calculators when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I think no one could do it. And it's true. People's maths got much worse after pocket calculators.
I mean, and with calculators, at least you still need to think. Whereas with the AI, it is just Grok telling me the answer. And so it won't be long until we get an actual like AI religion. and people start treating the Chat GPT like a god. It has all the
You were
answers.
already getting some of that. I
Yeah,
don't know if you've seen
right.
this guy, this YouTuber who used to call himself, he's Jewish, used to call himself Dr. Mike Israel, but there was like a big scandal where it turned out his PhD was like horrific, so then everyone just kept calling him Mr. Mike. I mean, he had this whole thing, this like big crash out where he was on Twitter and he admitted that he used to have like episodes, like these existential episodes where he would like cry to correct Chat GPT in the evening.
Right.
And he admitted someone said to him, "Oh, you know, if Chat GPT could be like a robot in like a robotic, would you marry it?" And he's like, "Yes, absolutely, yes," even though he's already married to someone, which
right. And like this
weirder.
is, this is grown adults. The effect it's having on them, just like when you've got these really young kids on it who are just there, like they don't stand a chance. You've completely, I feel like you've just messed up their brain development when they're sort of being given this.
And it still
It's
makes
almost like
mistakes.
the new.
It still makes mistakes.
Well, this is what I was about to say. It's almost like the new cargo cult, because essentially it's just drip feeding gibberish to like midwits, and they think these are like really profound discoveries they're making by like talking to this random GPT that's sourcing like Reddit threads.
It is going to be an entire skibbity generation.
Royal Biscuit says, "Does any of the panel think that the power demands will be its downfall?" I mean,
I think that's going to be a real tricky one.
I mean, like Musk was really big for years on essentially hoodwinking investors. I don't want to be too harsh to the guy, but he used to essentially just really, really hype up his own products to investors, and that's how a lot of his companies could get such enormous amounts of capital straight off the ground. We do seem to be in an age.
Starlink's actually pretty good, I've got to say. Like the Falkland Islands, for example, the only reason the Falkland Islands has decent internet now is because of Starlink. It didn't have before that. It had crappy internet, very slow.
And like
I know
Teslas were pretty
American
pioneering.
I know American guys who live in the middle of nowhere who have excellent internet, much better than mine, and I don't live in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, but the thing is that you've got like Teslas were pretty pioneering in the EV car space and stuff like that, but it's still kind of the thing that, like, if you look at like autopilot on the Tesla, like how he bigged that up and sold that to investors to get the capital to develop it compared to what the actual end product was is there is a pretty big disparity there. And it's like you kind of see this with like OpenAI, the company. They've just like they've got like many billions in investor capital, and I think this year they've actually, or I should say 2025, they actually like broke their own records many times over for investment. But they're still losing money. They're still losing billions a year.
Billions every year,
and it's like it's all on the hope that this product's going to shape up. And as you say, it's improving, but first off, I think they're fast approaching like a sort of ceiling in that industry, some of which is artificial, because of course every time you kind of unleash one of these LLMs, it turns into Mecha Hitler, and they have to kind of quickly reboot it. So so you've got that problem to deal with, but then also some of it's just the real limit, which is that artificial intelligence kind of can only do so much. It can only understand things to such an extent, and they probably aren't going to be able to deliver on all those promises. So it's like, I mean, I think it's still a bubble. I could well be completely proven wrong on this, but I think they're either gonna it's not going to be able to live up to enough promises to keep the investors coming in, and it's going to crack that way, or as Royal Biscuit says, the energy demands will catch up on it immediately, because as you said, Darian, like increasing the US's power output by 3 times at a point where we've been massively underestimating in energy, massively underinvesting in energy development for decades. It's just
less so in America, Adam, to be fair. So in America than in Europe and Britain, or Australia. Also, I will say another thing that AI is increasingly able to do, not perfectly yet, but it's getting there, is making films. I don't know if I don't know if you guys know Black Pill. I would imagine you guys would all know Black Pill. And he did an AI movie, and it was pretty bloody good. I mean, you could see it was AI if you know what you're looking at, but it was pretty good.
Yeah,
and he did that on his own, not with a team of people.
And like that stuff's all fine, but this isn't, like Adam was saying, this isn't the promise of AI. What they're saying is AI will basically just create the Star Trek future where no one has to work. It takes care of everything, and that's it. And it's just, I don't think so. It's going to figure out how to make it forever.
I will tell you something scary, guys. The British military satellite network is called Skynet. God's honest truth.
Brilliant.
I mean, you say
British
scary.
military...
I know that they're too incompetent to do anything good with that.
Yeah,
but
well,
you know something scarier though.
But it is called Skynet.
Do you know what's scarier though? Shabana Mahmood was quoted in a Telegraph article recently saying that that her idea of like the grand future for AI was that we'd be able to enact Jeremy Bentham's Panopticon.
Yeah,
on the British
on everyone. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Literally designed for prisons. That never even worked in prisons. I'm pretty sure all the prisons that tried that, the Panopticon failed. But
I mean, Larry Ellison.
It just means that you were constantly under observation. That was the whole point of it. And it was also worked with the silent system, like you want to let talk if you were a prisoner. And Jeremy Bentham, what an awful man.
I mean, really. Larry Ellison said the same thing, and that's a lot more concerning than Shabana Mahmood, because she's a fucking retard. You know, he's actually pulling strings and making things happen.
Yeah, and it's just it's insane. The thing is, as well, is that like again, I mean, this has kind of been done to death, but it's like, you know, they've created a problem, which is they've largely driven everyone out of third spaces and public spaces and created a world where everyone sort of exists on the net. And then they're like, oh, well, now we've got this problem that everyone's on the net. We need to police them on the net. And it's like, and one part of me thinks, oh, you know, maybe people will withdraw from the net, and then that'll be a truly frightening example for them, because then they can't see anyone. But of course, I don't know. I think lots of people will still just stay on there. I mean,
people are just talking to ChatGPT now. They don't have any friends. ChatGPT is their only friend.
Also, people were talking in the Discord before we went live about the new Australian hate speech laws. But if you look at them, and I put a couple of videos up there, I don't know if you guys checked either of them, but basically they're very similar to British hate speech laws. Surprise, surprise. And, you know, what you'll find the Australian elites and the British elites are both at Davos at the moment, so what a surprise. But yeah, it's increasingly look at the legalization of marijuana in many places. It's not so much 1984; it's more Brave New World that they're looking at, I reckon. But I don't know. Farian, did you have a first topic for this evening?
Well, I wanted to talk a bit about the Australian hate speech law, because it seems to all. I'm not too up on it, but it seems to all like basically.
You know, it's been rushed. It's been rushed forward. For anyone who doesn't understand Australia or doesn't follow Australia, which many people don't, because although it's an enormous country, it hasn't got a huge population. We had these a Pakistani guy and his son, who's also who is Pakistani heritage, shoot up a load of Jewish guys, including killing a child, which is obviously vile, at Bondi Beach in Sydney, which is one of the most famous beaches in Australia. It's one of the few Australian places I'd heard before I moved here. I'd heard of, you know, and I went to look at it, and my love of my life, who was an Australian girl, was really surprised I was interested to go to Bondi Beach, because like it wasn't no big deal to her. She lived just outside Sydney anyway. But they killed loads of Jewish guys having a Hanukkah picnic or something, including some kids, which obviously is vile, and we all condemn. But this guy came to Australia on a student visa, repeatedly went back to Pakistan, eventually married a Pakistani woman in Australia, and even though he never even became a permanent resident of Australia, he was allowed to buy quite a few guns because he was in a shooting club and he went hunting, supposedly.
I thought Australia had pretty strict gun laws after that.
Nowhere near as strict as Britain. What happened in Australia was, after another shooting incident in Tasmania, they banned semi-auto firearms. So in America, a guy can buy an M16.
Yeah,
it's not fully automatic, but it will fire semi-auto. So every time you press the trigger, you get a shot. Can't have one of those in Australia. You can only have a bolt action rifle or a pump action shotgun, something like that. If it's semi-auto, you can't have it basically. But anything else, you could. Particularly, you can
have semi-auto shotguns in Britain, which is surprising.
Yes, but only shotgun.
Yeah.
But and if you're not a farmer, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, what do you want one of those for?" You know, you got a license for that, mate. But it's the Australian gun laws were not as bad, but of course, following this, which was not done by an Australian, wasn't done by anyone on the far right, it was done by a couple of Muslim nutcases, as usual. They've pushed through very rapidly anti-gun laws because it's an excuse to do that, and they look for any excuse. And the gay Australian Prime Minister Albanese, it's a socialist, by the way, just like Starmer. Also the gay stuff, just like Starmer. They did that, and they've also they'd only just produced a law supposedly aimed at keeping children off the social media, but was really designed to make everyone get some sort of ID in order to use social media. And now they brought in this anti-hate speech law, which of course is designed to protect certain classes of people. But despite the fact that atrocity which sparked it was Muslims doing stuff against Jewish people, it's actually supposed to protect Muslims and Jewish people.
Yeah, this response...
And the only people who lose, of course, are the traditional Australians, the traditional white Australians. They're the only people who lose out.
Yeah, this response...
do any of this shit.
Yeah, this response to the shooting surprised me, because I was expecting, more foreign Muslims killing people. Yeah, we've seen this before. I was expecting the usual "don't look back in hate," all that stuff. Now, the Australian government just went to, why would the far right do this? Okay, this is what we're doing, right?
Well, very much like Goldstein or whatever his name was at Davros saying about the so-called old Europeans' insecurities about the immigrants. Very much the same thing, really, isn't it?
I did see the Greens held up the bill for a little bit, and I figured this is just because they want to hate Jewish people as well. They want to keep hating Jewish people, so they made that cutout for you're allowed to be anti-Semitic for religious reasons. So if you also holy books say stuff, well, that's okay. We can't stop that.
The thing about the far right, Woodpit, is the far right is not violent. Really.
No. Yeah.
You could count on the fingers of one hand the far right violence there's been in the last decade.
Yeah.
All over the world. Almost none, basically. The only people who've been doing terrorist stuff pretty much have been the religion of pieces, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Look at Australia and what's happened. You had the Bondi terrorists.
It's what we're talking about, William. That's exactly what we're talking about. And also the new Australian gun restrictions, which everyone knew they were going to use that as an excuse for, even though it was done by a Pakistani Muslim and his son. And also we're talking about the new Australian hate speech laws, which are very similar to British hate speech laws. And surprise, surprise, protect Muslims, the very people who did this atrocity.
One thing I will say is people like the British Australian society, the various monarchists and loyalist societies, Aussie Pill, people like that, I think have been pretty good. But the problem that you also had was that Joel Davis organization, the National Socialist Network, or whatever they call. And look, I never really talked. I've never talked about them. I never talked about them on here. But I would say this: if your thing is to go out, throw up Nazi salutes, and dress up like the brown shirts or what have you, you're asking for. You literally you are asking for it there. I mean, that I as much as we sort of indulge and maybe even laugh a bit ourselves, I will say in that regard, I think it was foolish. And the problem is, looking at today, Iron Duke, I saw a tweet by the what was it? I think it was the Jewish Australian Society. And they went on a massive anti-white tirade, how he's wanting to rename all the towns and cities in their Aboriginal names, and also they've attacking the legacy of Cook and the various settlers and waves of British men and women who arrived. And the problem that you got is with the NSN, organization, is in some ways I fear it could put it muddies our side of things, because we're not talking about we're not German. None of us are German. None of us are have any connection to Australia. Isn't like 1930s Germany, so the arguments there are different, but at the same time it's any sort of reasonable person. And unfortunately, this is the thing: if these people wanted to do like real world street based activism, if you do that, you do have to. I mean, I know we talk about elite theory and everything about the masses and everything, but you do need to connect with the masses on a level. And everyone in our societies have been primed to view Nazism and the Nazis as the ultimate evil. And if you
could I just say, William, I'm not disagreeing with anything you say here, right? And I'm no sort of national socialist, not even the watered down Australian version, right? But I would just say this: for example, in Victoria, the state I live in, the Nazi salute is illegal. You can be arrested for doing a Nazi salute. And as everyone in Victoria now says, you have to be careful how you hail a bus. Because you could get done for doing a Nazi salute, because of course, the Labour Party are in charge of Victoria. But and I have my criticisms of people like Joel Davis. I do. I try not to punch right, so I don't talk about it much.
Which is why I've never talked about it, because I for the last few years I have watched people like Joel Davis and people like that, and I haven't said anything, because I definitely don't agree with them, the way that they've done it. And the thing though is, when we had that infiltrator, that Australian infiltrator, who was that lefty retard and everything, that's basically, I thought originally he was part of that, because he was talking about like real world violence and everything. And I thought, oh, this guy's from that crowd. And I remember I think we DM'd around that, and I said, listen, this guy, it sounds like trouble. I
think he thought that that's what we were initially.
I think so as well.
He was completely wrong, because I'll say again, I'm no sort of national socialist, not even the watered down Australian version. I'm an Englishman and a British guy, and I've lived in Australia for 26 years now, and I'll support Anzacs and I'll support British soldiers. I won't support neo-Nazis. So, we're not those guys. But on the other hand, I don't slag off people like Joel Davis because I don't punch right. I just don't.
No, I agree with this. I mean, what they say about the fate of Australia, the way that Australia is, like all Anglosphere countries, they're right. But the trouble is, playing dress up, like 1930s dress up, it's stupid. I just thought that was their biggest flaw. And even to this day, because I think, and what they've done now is, as we all said this with the Bondi attack, that they would use laws to punish people on the right, and this is what they've done. And you're seeing similar things in Canada as well, and you're definitely going to be seeing that here as well in Britain. And the more that you have these people that play dress up and do the spurging out thing. I mean, I won't.
Doing dress ups is foolish because it makes you easily recognizable and easily arrested. I'm sorry, it just does.
I mean, there's one chap who he has like he has like one of these sort of leader of this minor party, like very minor party. I heard of him only last year. It's called Alex something or other, and he literally walks around with like Hitler's trench coat during the Munich Putsch. I mean, I mean, and this is the thing. It's like what are we doing here? And what are we doing here? That's basically what I'm getting at.
Do you want to be taken seriously or not? Because that's not the way to do it.
If you're, I mean, listen, we're just commentators online. We're not running parties. We're not running movements. But if I was running, like the castle stuff, I'm not going to dress up as much as with knights and everything. I'm not going to don a suit of armor and just larp around and say, behold, I am the Bargrave of this many castles.
William, aren't you going to get one of those Crusader outfits from Griffin?
I find the Templar Order a bit too French. There was too many Frenchmen in the Templar Order. A true English knightly order would be the Order of the Garter. I would say maybe if I could get like my own heraldry or something.
Let me just tell people one thing about the Australian right, in our sense of the right. So not the Liberal Party, which is the Australian equivalent of the Tories in Britain, and just as left-wing, really. Although they're called Liberals in Australia, they're really the Australian version of the Conservatives. And then they have their partners, which is more of a country party called the Nationals, who are also fairly liberal for the most part, to be honest. They used to be a bit better, but I think they've got worse over the years. But if you're going to talk about the right beyond them, in Australia so far, there's really only two sorts. You're either a libertarian or you're a third position type, I mean, yes, there is people like the British Australian Society who do a lot of good work, I've streamed with and I fully support, who try and keep up, Anglo links to Australia and all that kind of thing. And people of Anglo heritage who are still just about the majority of Australians, by the way. If you count Irish people, certainly they are. Apart from those guys, there's really only you're either a libertarian or you're some sort of third positionist, and it's the nationalist scene in Australia is not as advanced as it is in Britain. It just isn't. At the moment, Australia had it very good for a long time. It's got much worse fairly quickly over the last few years. Like Australian energy bills are going out of control at the moment, just like they are all over the world. The Australian unemployment rates are not fabulous, and the Australian economy just depends totally on the housing bubble, basically, which they can only keep up by mass immigration. I mean, I can't remember the last time I got in a taxi. Actually, I can. It was about 15 years ago. It was the last time I got a taxi driven by a white Australian. I can't remember the last time I got a delivery from anybody other than a postman who was a white Australian. There's just none. It's all Indians. It's all, people from that part of the world. Australia has got markedly worse in the last 10 to 15 years, really markedly worse. And it's not me saying that. And I've lived in Australia for 26 years now, but people who've lived here all their life say the same thing. It's got markedly worse and quite quickly. And they can't stop the mass immigration, because if they do, the housing market will collapse. And if the housing market collapses, well, that's the end of Australia, because we don't make anything anymore, really, just like Britain.
Yeah.
I think, like, comparing the like the National Socialist Network to Steve Laws, for instance. Steve doesn't, Steve's just keeping it simple. No, I'm just an English guy. He doesn't get bogged down in all the Second World War nonsense and all this, even when people try and pull him on that, because there's no point. Just it's much better just step over that stuff.
I mean,
I totally agree, Steve.
I mean, one
Steve
of the
Laws
worst.
is sensible. Yes.
I mean, one of the, and I want to do a stream about this. In the 60s, when you had like the sort of lefty hippie movement, and then the hippies went like, you had some sections of them that went like psychotic serial killer, murderers, terrorists, and bank robbers, and what have you. And then of course like cult leaders, and then like Jamestown, that sort of stuff. There is that on the right. I mean, for one instance, I didn't know that and I won't mention who in the Australian network, but I know that have any of you heard about the Order of the Nine Angels?
No.
Okay, so basically I think it's based in the UK. It's like a Nazi satanic group,
Right.
and I believe they have like, and the fucked up thing about these people is that they sort of say that they're neo-pagan, but they're actually satanic, and also most of them, their leaders, have been arrested as paedophiles.
Yeah.
Now, for me, that those lot should not even be anywhere near anyone on the right. They are just, quite frankly, worse than the hats.
Yeah.
Because their whole thing is just anti-civilizational to the core.
Yeah.
They've gone. Yeah, they've just gone. They're sort of beyond schizo. They're kind of just gone like, they've sort of just accepted the madness of modernity and then gone evil.
Oh yeah, I remember them now. Yeah. And that's like like a cancer. When you get near them, it will just spread to you if you let them.
Look, I think it goes without saying that any group that supports or is involved with pedophilia in any way, shape, or form is nothing the right should be involved with. And I'm not in favor of Satanists. I mean, I like genuine pagans, like Tom Rouse, survived the jive, great bloke, does great history stuff. I think he's got a new video coming out soon, a documentary about the Angles this time. He's already done the Saxons. He's going to do the Angles, I think, this time. But guys like him are excellent, but I'm not really into Satanists. And as soon as those people get involved with furries and pedophilia and all this bullshit, that no one on the right should have anything to do with them whatsoever. Obviously,
I will add as a caveat. I have Joel Davis and like those sort of people. None of those people have ever endorsed them. Of course, Thomas Rousel would never endorse. I think he would view them as repulsive, like beyond just scum, evil scum, as well as even people like Mark Collette. I know I saw a clip going around with one of the people who somewhat defended them. Even Mark Collette just referred to them as just evil scum who do damage to the right and everything. So they are
100%, 100%. Could I just say to guys, if you're like, whether you're an Australian or whether you're just interested in Australian events and news from a right-wing point of view, could I give a plug to my friend Tim Wilms? Go and watch Tim Wilms's channel on YouTube. He does a regular weekly roundup of Australian news and events. Tim is a bit of a libertarian, but he's also an Australian nationalist. And he will cover some of these third position people in Australia, and fairly sympathetically. So if you want to know what's actually going on in Aussie, I would suggest you find Tim Wilms on YouTube, and you follow him. He's also, of course, on X, on Twitter. But he does a good weekly stream, which is generally pretty accurate about what's actually going on in Australia. And he's also done lots of stuff on the new online harms bill, on the new hate speech laws, on the new gun laws, and everything else the repressive uni party is bringing into Australia. And I will say this, Australians have just recently, some Australians who I follow, have started to talk about the uni party. They're starting to see that there's not a lot of difference between the Liberals and Nationals on the one side and the Labour Party in Australia, just as there's no real difference between Labour and Conservatives in the UK.
Yeah, true.
Thariam, you this was your topic. Did you have anything else you wanted to say about it? And then I'll move on to William and see if he's got a first topic for this week.
I don't think so. Do you think? But do you think they're going to go quite hard on this, the government, that enforcing this all these?
Yeah, they'll go as hard as they can. And the trouble is, you see, in Australia, the group that has been doing quite well in Australian elections are the so-called teals. And these people are almost all women, 99% of them are women. They're middle-class, lefty women, basically. And you can imagine what they're like. You know, all white men are evil. Yes, okay, there's a load of sexual abuse in the Aboriginal communities, but that's all the white man's fault. All that stuff, you know. They're really vile, and they've been doing quite well, sadly. So I don't know. And as I said, there's not been the nearest thing is probably One Nation. I know Atman was asking about this. That's Pauline Hanson's party, One Nation, who I personally always vote for. Doesn't do me much good where I live, but I still vote for them.
Are they actually any good though?
Yeah, Pauline Hanson and One Nation are the nearest thing Britain has to something in between Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe.
I assume they were going to be like Reform, but then when I looked, they were all white. So
yeah, no, I think they're a bit better than Reform because Reform is just getting, it's worse now than a year ago I could have believed it would become. But no, I'd say that Pauline Hanson and One Nation, they're not as good as Rupert Lowe, but they're better than Nigel Farage. They're somewhere up on that.
Who's that like half Lebanese or Lebanese chap with the cowboy hat and everything? Because he's
all right. He's all right.
Is he? Because I've seen him like say like, we're not British, we have nothing to do with Britain, and then like, you know.
You have to understand, William, there is a certain anti-English thing in Australia which really came about mostly because of Irish immigration.
He's Lebanese though.
Yeah, I know, but that's where that comes from, and that's where it gets any resonance, you know. The Irish immigrants were always a little bit anti-English. That's why you get if you watch any Australian film, pretty much, that's actually about Australians, there'll be some anti-English stuff in there. Nearly every one, actually. Yeah. The only one where you didn't see it, and you couldn't, was Danger Close, the Battle of Long Tan in Vietnam. And the reason and even then, they made changes. Like, quite a lot of the soldiers who fought at Long Tan were ex-British Army. But they don't say that in the movie. Not at all. Instead, they highlight one Irish guy and one Aboriginal guy who were there, but there were more guys who'd been in the British Army there. But they don't highlight any of those guys. Surprise, surprise. But, you know, listen, it's a great film. I love it. It's a good film. And as a recent film, it's the only recent Western film I think it's any good, to be honest. There is this Irish thing in Australia, and that's where the anti-English bit comes from.
On this thing of like the one nation, though, like, so what's the actual happening in the Australian Parliament that's led to them seeing this rise? What's
Well, it's just that there's been a recognition partly that there is a uni party in Australia, that the Liberals and their national allies and the Labour Party are not really very different. That's why all this shit was put through Parliament extremely quickly, because no one went against it. There's been that, and like, if you're a white Australian, who the hell do you vote for then? Well, there's only really one nation. Like, I've always voted one nation, even when they weren't all that popular, because who the hell else would I vote for, you know? They're the pro-white Australian party. They just are.
So they've been around a while, though.
Oh, yeah. But Pauline Hanson's been around, I don't know, 25 years, 30 years, in fact.
Okay. So
she was around when I moved here 26 years ago.
So it's a bit more like UKIP, but if UKIP stuck around, though.
Yes, yeah. I think that's probably fair, Carrigan, actually. Yeah, that is perfectly reasonable.
Right. So what is their stance on immigration? How far?
So Alan Bastard is saying they still grovel to the small hats. Well, yeah, maybe, but a bit like in Britain, the small hats are not as powerful here as they are in America. You know, you can sometimes not see the wood for the trees if that's all you ever see. You know, that's my opinion anyway. You know, I'm not at all a great pro-Israel fan. And you know, I'm not, and I think we make our positions on this channel pretty bloody clear. But you know what? They're not the biggest problem in Australia or in Britain.
Yeah, I mean, the new hate speech laws for Australia, they made the cutouts so that Muslims can keep hating them.
Yes, they did, pretty much. Yes.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Listen, that's not my opinion, William. I pointed out early in this stream before you joined us that one of the people on the Discord put up a little film about a terrorist incident in Israel in 1948 when terrorists blew up the King David Hotel, supposedly going after military commanders, but actually killing a load of British women and children. Guess who those terrorists were? They were Jewish terrorists.
And one of them, I believe, they were the founders of the party that Benjamin Netanyahu belongs to.
Doesn't surprise me at all, mate.
Yeah. And
I mean, on this stream, we've talked about the USS Liberty incident. We've talked about the 2 British sergeants who were captured by Jewish terrorists and subsequently hung. We talked about all these things. We don't hide or run away from this stuff. It's just not. I don't see a small hat behind every single bush. You know, there's plenty of problems that are not those guys.
I mean, the thing is, they operate their influence through the United States, through the political power of the United States, like the cultural imperial power of the United States, and also the economic power and all that, and what have you. We all know, that. But I think a lot of problems, unfortunately, a lot of it is our own people, because whether it be through propaganda or a generation or 2 of propaganda, but a lot of our own people are just either docile or just absolutely brain rotted with this shit.
All right, this is. I've just got to say one thing, William, and then I'll ask you for your subject, and you can talk to us. Alan Bastard is saying, but one nation still grovels to the small hats. Yeah, all right, I get what you're saying. But we were just talking, and in fact, William Grenville mostly was just talking about how the third position people in Australia just make themselves obvious targets and make themselves look ridiculous. So you've got to get a position somewhere between groveling to the small hats, as you put it, Alan Bastard, and being third position guys who walk around like they're in 1930s Germany. You know, you've got to get a position in between this. And Australia is basically an Anglo-Celtic nation. You know, it's so those guys are never going to become so popular they're going to sweep into power. It's not an Aussie thing any more than it's a British thing. You know, there was a group in the 20s, I think, either 20s or early 30s in Australia that was pretty third positionist and had quite a lot of support, including from a lot of ex-servicemen, but it still never got anywhere.
No, true. True. And yeah, this is. I mean, yeah, there is a real third position on all of this.
Yeah.
There is a true
you've got
third
to get
position.
somewhere in between these two positions if you want to get anywhere. You know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you
I'm-
should grovel to any other group. You shouldn't. But at the same time, you can't pretend you're in 1930s Germany.
Well, this goes back to the Bowden speech where he and this was directed at BNP members. He said, you know, being white, just saying being white and being English isn't enough. You actually have to know yourself and your own people to be able to. I mean, almost like you could say like in a sort of a Buddhist enlightenment way. You need to reach some sort of right wing Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-Celtic enlightenment to actually discover who you as a people are, how we as a people are, and then we can go forward. I mean, the most obvious thing I would say is, you know, I think the closest person today who is able to do this maybe is someone like Rupert Lowe. I mean, he's probably like the one that can be that balancing act where he doesn't grovel to anybody, you know, regardless, anyone, and also he is extremely like loyal to Britain. I mean, that all we ask for is just, you know, I mean, in Australia, you want people extremely loyal to Australians, and you need people in this country governing who are extremely loyal to Britain, like this country, like its heritage, like its people, and like and loves its history, and totally devoted to the preservation.
That's William. That's the thing, you see, in Britain particularly, but it's also true of Australia. But in Britain, it's much more true. There's such a long and brilliant British history, right? We do not need to borrow from mid-20th century Germany. We don't. We have our own long and glorious traditions. But that's also, although Australia is a much younger country, you know, it was founded in 1788, it still has a long history that's got fuck all to do with mid-century Germany. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, what was that though? Like mid-century Germany was a. I mean, if we're being honest, it was just a reaction. It was a German nationalistic reaction to the widespread Bolshevism and liberalism that was sweeping Germany in the Weimar Republic. That's all it was. It was just a reaction to that, and where Germany. I mean, if you, there's some good books on this, but if you actually deep down look into how conservative the German Reich was during the First World War, and then you look at like the horrors of the Weimar Republic, and like the mother and daughter prostitutes, like widespread prostitution, transgenderism. I mean, we know it. We know all this stuff. That was a reaction to all of that.
The book burnings, right? The book burnings.
Yeah, the book burnings.
They weren't burning stuff like 1984 or Brave
Shakespeare
New World.
Shakespeare.
They were burning transgender books and filth, basically.
Yeah, and also copies of the Talmud as well. Anyway,
that's odd. I don't wonder why they did that.
Yeah, that doesn't seem right.
William, did you have a first topic for this evening?
I have actually. Yeah, I have. Yeah. So in Britain, at the moment, it's the latest thing seems to be cancelling elections, and 29 local elections this year have again. So I think this is the second or third time now have actually been postponed, or basically cancelled, by the government. Now, this has been, the government says that local councils, which are majority Labour and also a few Tory councils, have contacted local government, contacted central government to ask for local elections to be cancelled. The obvious reason, as a glaring obvious reason, is these councillors and these council leaders don't want to lose their sleep. They don't want to lose their seats. They don't want to lose their positions in the council, and vice versa, and all that sort of stuff. And this has all been done under the guise of procedure and redistricting and boundaries and everything, and it would cost too much money. Though redistricting and boundaries have been done before during local elections, and they've still gone ahead, and it doesn't really cost that much money. Organising, it's usually general elections. It's a cost, money when it comes to printing and ballot boxes, because they usually predict about turnout, and if we're honest, local election turnouts in Britain is quite low. It can be anything above 30% is unusual, to say the least. So it's not that high, but this is what's happening here in Britain, is that now the elections are starting to be cancelled, and it's interesting because this was done we started seeing this a few years ago in Europe, where the like in Romania, where you had the presidential election, and the what was it, the quote unquote the right wing pro-Russian candidate who won was then removed, and they redid the election, and the right guy won this time. And it's quite interesting because at this point, we're at a point where liberal democracy and the values that we bombard our population with, the right to vote and democracy, and look over there at the evil Russians and Iranians and people like that who oppress their people and don't give them voting rights and all that. And at the same time, our government's pulling this. And you looking at this, they've got all their talking heads in the Labour, in the the regime, I guess you say, the party, to defend this and say, oh, this is just a right wing conspiracy, right wing noises, and all that sort of stuff, and dog whistling. But I mean, effectively, what they're doing is they are undermining their own signalling and messaging. And I don't think I don't think they're in a strong enough position to do this. I think maybe 10 years ago this could have been a thing, but it's quite obvious why this has been done. And I don't know necessarily if it's just about reform. I also think another reason is they are the Labour. I actually think this has been done mainly for the Green Party, and the Muslim, like the local Muslim vote in various Labour strongholds around the country as well.
You mean to help them?
No, because Labour are losing their client groups.
Yeah.
Labour's losing their client groups.
They're scared of them, Farian, is what William is saying, I think.
Yeah, I think definitely, yeah. I mean, you're seeing a big tick up in the Green support now.
Yeah, you're seeing in Green. You're also seeing in like independent candidates who like the sort of
women and silly young men. It has to be said, nearly all women and silly young men in Green stuff.
I do think the Green support, though, I like the Plaid Cymru in Wales. I think it is really overestimated. I think it's just I know it's like the old thing, don't believe the polls. I actually think on this account, I think it's just totally astroturf nonsense to create a bit of internal like Labour Party. The Labour Party want to get rid of Starmer, and they want to get Andy Burnham in. I mean, that's quite clear. There a lot of people in the party want to change leadership now. And I think the reason they're doing a lot of this is to say, look, you're losing votes to our right and you're losing to Reform and you're losing votes to our left to, these parties.
I don't know about the support for Greens, because you do have to remember the establishment parties have never been weaker than they are now. So, like, normal times, yeah, I'd guess so overstated, but I think they do have a chance now.
Women voters will always vote for something that seems nice. In air quotes, and stupid young men who want to get into women's knickers will also support that, because they stupidly think that women like male feminists, and of course they don't. Even feminist women, despise male feminists, but most young men don't know that. They haven't got enough experience to work that out yet. But anyway, that I think that's the truth, Therium.
But Zach Polanski last year literally came out of nowhere. Like, 1 week, no one ever heard of him. Next week, he was the new hot shit on the scene.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. To be honest, it is straight. You could say with the SNP and people like that, I don't think they were quite. I think they were AstroTurf a bit, but they weren't, because they were a thing. And Alex Salmond's back. He was a thing for a long time back in the 70s and 80s. This thing, I'm going to be honest. It is as AstroTurf, as someone just said, like Just Stop Oil and those sorts of movements. It is just straight up AstroTurfed. And the media bookings that he's got and everything, it's quite clear that it is being pushed as well. To what end? I think it's been pushed by the establishment. I think it's been done to either it's done to flank Labour from the left, or it's been done to create the I am aware that I think they know that people in this country are desiring change, and as you said, the main parties have just totally run out of steam in all capacity. And so this is like the regime's way of keeping control, that they create like the AstroTurf, a left-wing party with the rise of reform.
Guys, forgive me for interrupting, all right, but we're coming up on 2 hours, and I want us to finish by talking about Rupert Lowe and what he should do. But before I can do that, I need to get Mitch and Adaman to talk about this a little bit. I would say Orlando B in the chat is right. They're redistributing the deck chairs on the Titanic. That's what they're doing, because they know that the modern liberal left governments, that they're flailing because they're failing. They know they are. They're losing the support of the public. But like I said, we've been going almost 2 hours, and I know sometimes like working guys like Adaman need to leave earlier. So Mitch or Adaman, did you have anything you wanted to say about William's topic? And then we'll move on to a brief discussion of what we hope Rupert Lowe may or may not do.
I think I think you've kind of hit all the main points on the head for it. I mean, it is a bit like I do find myself sort of more and more confused by like what their game plan is. Like, is this the establishment trying to outflank Labour from the left, or are they trying to do this as a strategy to sort of keep certain groups on side? Do they just view dissident energy as just dissident energy, and they think that they could like bring along like a leftist dissident and like buy people back in with that? I mean, when you listen to a lot of these people, they do sit there and they're like, oh, people just think this because of the cost of living. Like, otherwise no one would think rape gangs were a big deal. And it's like you kind of look at them and think, are you fucking insane? But they do generally seem to believe that. So I suppose they think if they get like a guy who outflanks from the left and gives the left populist answer. I mean, if you think back to I don't know if everyone remembers this guy now. He there was actually a guy on Instagram the other day who's one of these like leftist masculinity, like read books and punch Nazis type guys. And I posted in his comments and was like, I give you 5 years before you tune out. And he had a bit of a spurg out about it. But they do this a lot. There was this guy on YouTube, one of the bread tubers called Philosophy Tube.
Yes.
I remember.
And he tuned out. He was like their big, like, oh look guys, white guys can be on the left too. And then he wasn't a white guy anymore. Wasn't one of the bros any longer. He had this like big thing where he was trying to push the idea that actually we should all be frightened because there is also an answer on the left of populism, which is left-wing populism, and to him that was Jeremy Corbyn. But he was quite tied into the establishment, as were quite a few of those ones in the British like bread tube scene. So I do kind of think that is kind of a reflection of the idea that permeates in there, which is that they think that they can just like hold up a mirror and like produce their own answer to this, and that people will go out and vote for it. And that's why they've always got to come in with the materialist answer. They've always got to be like, oh, actually, this is just a response to like bad economics. And it's like, no, you know,
rich people exist.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't think we'll have.
It's always the excuse. Oh yeah, it's economics. If only people had higher wages and everything was cheaper, it'd be great. And yeah, of course, every policy they do, particularly on energy, makes everyone poorer constantly. But I mean, even on their own terms, they fail. And to say nothing of home ownership, of course. But it's. I pretty much agree with what Atman's saying here. It's just bullshit, and the rape gangs, 11-year-old British girls who were sometimes branded, tortured, humiliated, gang raped. That's got nothing to do with economics.
No, but the funny thing is with the Green Party, whenever they're broached with the question of the rape gangs, I know it's just a vanguardist thing that they have going on, but they never acknowledge it ever happening, and they will immediately say, "What about white English paedophiles?" They'll just say, "What about white English paedophiles? They make up the white people in Britain make up most rapists."
I'd shoot them too.
But what they do is they actually change. What they do is it's a dialectical. They force you. When they engage. You can't engage with them. What they'll do is they'll just change the topic, and then they'll make it about something about it like rape or paedophilia in general. And the point is, we're talking about this specific thing because of the cover up, and this is something that I've talked about as well. And it's the actual how the grooming gang stuff has been muddied and watered down, and the actual scandal of it has been forgotten on many people. Not just, particularly those some on the right as well who have other motives to talk about it. But the reality is, it was the corruption of local parties like Labour Party and the Tory Party on a smaller level, but mainly the Labour Party with their client groups, and they colluded with police and English people, white English people, in this.
100%.
That is the real scandal, and for many people, the reason why they can have their inquiries, they can have hundreds of inquiries, government inquiries or what have you, and it will always come out with the same thing, right? That it will talk about all rapes or safety of women and girls. Bullshit.
The one exception is Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain's inquiry, which I think is actually focused on the actual thing we're talking about here.
I would like. I don't know if it'd be a psychologist or someone, but I would like. I mean, in an ideal world, I would like to get one of these people who's not part of like that, like any Pakistani tribe or someone like that. Because I don't really care what their motives behind it. They're just animalistic, evil heathens. I would get one of like the white English people, like a police officer, I'd like get them down and I would, you know, almost dissect their brain to see if there's
Yeah.
like a neurological problem with them. Because
Yeah.
quite frankly, I can't sort of rationalize how they could even do something like that. And
We had, William, we had dads trying to save their daughters. And I know, like, certain moronic Americans, and not all Americans are moronic, but some of them are, like every nation, said, "Oh, no, you never fought. You never tried to save anybody." British dads and brothers did try and save their daughters and sisters, but they were arrested by the British police.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, like, why would you just? I mean, is it were they all just paid off? Is that it? You know, I know what you mean, because you're just
in some of
letting
those
this happen
areas,
to your-
Farim, as I know you know, in some of
Yeah.
those areas, you'd have to look at the ethnicity of the police involved.
No, but like Will's talking about, there are the white English people who went along with this and covered it up, and like, what? Like, why would you let this happen to your own people? Like, what sort of mind is that?
Hatred of your own people. I mean, the left hates Britain. Honestly, just general lefties hate Britain. They don't think we've got a glorious history. They think the
It's
British
like-
Empire was really
there's
evil.
that.
And
There's
know.
the empire thing, but then there's like just this innocent little girl who's done nothing. And
Yeah,
you
I mean,
still turn against her.
I think what I'm getting at is a lefty tanky can type on, white people commit there's a difference. There's actually like a stark difference from typing that shit up on like BreadTube or Reddit or here, or even typing comments on YouTube, and then like you're someone IRL and you see that shit happen in front of you. Like, I mean, when you read like in history, like various armies where soldiers would commit, particularly like in the third world, they would like sack a town and commit rape and what have you.
More appropriate, if you don't mind me saying, is the Soviet invasion of Germany in 1945. Every German woman, pretty much, from about 7 years old to about 90 years old, was raped.
Yeah, and there was a mass suicide, and it was a horrific thing, absolutely horrific. And there are there's interviews and stuff. It's very harrowing. Even the most ardent, German veterans and stuff who talked about it, that I've seen in interviews, who, soldiers and everything. It was a very harrowing experience. You have to be one sick, fucking cold, heartless piece of shit nutcase to, have no emotion to that. And apparently we have thousands of them, of our own people in Northern England, who are like that. And I want to know why.
William, we know, right, that these mainly Pakistani child rape gangs that are called grooming gangs, right? They're called grooming gangs. That in itself is a cover-up. We know that these little girls, as young as 11, were constantly referred to as white sluts. We know this.
I'm starting to regret bringing up this example because everyone's just getting really angry about it.
And we should be, and we should be. Do you know what? If this had have happened back in my granddad's day, right? All of the local white dudes would have got together and there would have been a fucking lynching. Might not have been a hanging, but it would have been a death.
Yeah, but they would have been arrested though. This is kind of the problem with the Americans.
Maybe not.
The problem with the Americans stepping in and saying, "Oh, why didn't you do anything?" It's like,
maybe not.
Okay, why don't you take back Detroit? Why don't you take back this? Why don't you take back these places?
Adam, what I'm trying to say is, back in the 1940s, I'm not talking about today. I'm talking, and in the 1940s, the cops would have agreed with them.
Well, in the 1950s, sorry, when
Even
you
in the
talked about
1950s, the cops would have agreed
well,
with them. I think.
with the bombing of the King David Hotel, one thing that isn't and the lynching of the officers, the murdering of those British Army officers, one thing that isn't talked about is actually in Britain there were riots, anti-Jewish riots that took place in Britain.
Yeah, no, I can believe that. I can believe that.
It did happen because that was sort of the the reaction to it. But of course, the problem with the grooming gang stuff is because I get angry, Iron Duke gets angry about it. It's because every time it's just muddied and the dialectic of it has been changed. But the problem is because the actual, what we're talking about is actually the heart of it. This is like what the actual story is, and nobody has talked about it because to do so would basically be condemning, effectively gig men of the regime of probably committing, as Iron Duke said, like Soviet World War II level crimes against a foreign power like Germany. I mean, we're accusing them. They're standing.
And hang on, let's be fair, William. Right? I am sure there were quite a few rapes of Soviet women and girls when the Germans did Barbarossa. All right.
Oh yeah.
So and two wrongs don't make a right, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I know that they're particularly the recruits who were from like Belarus and Ukraine very much were pretty awful with the Russian population, let's just say. And that sort of stuff went on 100%. Yeah, absolutely. And also Jewish people who were living there as well. Yeah, of course. That stuff happens.
Hang on, let me ask Mitch about this. Because when Mitch was much younger, he was a bit tanky adjacent, I'd say. So I know he knows an awful lot about history in terms of that part of the world. Mitch, what's your view on what we're talking about at the moment?
I mean, because I know, like in the case of the Soviet, it wasn't the frontline troops that were doing the raping; it was the rear echelon troops that were doing it, and a lot of those came from.
I have heard that. To be fair,
yeah, because the frontline troops, for example, let's say your average Belarusian, average Russian, they'd be more focused on vengeance. So yeah, they probably would have done war crimes anyway against, let's say, German soldiers and the SS. But like the rear echelon troops, especially a lot of those guys would be guys who were involved with the Communist Party or let's say the NKVD, for example, abused their power a lot. Plus, also you had Central Asians and people of that ilk who'd often do a lot of raping. So
I know there are even cases, Mitch, of Russian female prisoners of war who were raped by the Soviet troops. They didn't care that they were Russian female prisoners; they still raped them.
Yeah, I don't know if I've verified. I don't know if it's actually true, but I've heard also Holocaust survivors end up getting raped by the Soviets as well. I don't know if that happened. Like a case of like Jewish women in the concentration camps just getting raped as well. I won't be surprised, but I don't know if it's. But I won't be surprised if it's true.
Look, we've got to be a little bit careful because we're on YouTube, and YouTube doesn't even like you mentioning the RAPE word. But I will just say this: there is an element of racial domination in the grooming gangs, which has never been acknowledged in Britain by most people. Mm-hmm. And as a segue, the one guy who is actually trying to do a good inquiry into this, and I think it's going to be worth reading when it comes out, is Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain. Now, to finish up this evening, I just wanted to ask the panel, do we want Rupert Lowe to form a party? And are we a bit disappointed he hasn't said it yet? No, I'm not saying, yes, If he wants to take 2-3 more weeks, great. But I really hope he does, because a Rupert Lowe group of even half a dozen or so MPs could go a long way to keeping a reform government honest. So, my view is, yes, I hope Rupert Lowe does come up with some sort of idea for a party and doesn't try and contest every seat, but maybe targets about 15 or 20 seats with really good candidates. And the group of Rupert Lowe heading a group of even half a dozen MPs in the next general election with a reform government, which I hope is what we're going to end up with, even though I don't like reform much now. That could do a lot of good. I'm just going to pass that over to the panel.
I would say, yeah, I do hope he has a party, because I feel like that's the only thing we have left now. Like, you look at the talk of reforms front bench, it is literally 50% foreign Muslims and 50% Boris Wave cabinet. Oh dear, this isn't what we wanted, and we're sort of stuck with that. But I do think we need to aim bigger than a dozen candidates, because if any party gets in, unless that dozen is needed to form an alliance to get into government, you can just ignore them. That's the thing. If you've got enough seats, your party has enough seats on its own. Everyone else in the opposition, totally irrelevant. They can do nothing, unfortunately.
One thing I'd say to you, Farahim, on that one: will the reform base allow Farage and Reform to ignore?
They've been checking down. They've been ticking down now. The reform support.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure about that, but okay, I'll take your word for it, because you know more about it than I do.
Yeah, in some polls they've been dipping down a bit, because again they've made their containment so damn obvious, and that's not what people want.
I'm not sure if Rupert will actually start a party, though.
I know, it'll be disappointing.
He has specifically said in the past that he wasn't really interested in that side of the battle. But
didn't he say just a week ago that he was doing some serious thinking about this stuff?
Yeah, but that could literally mean anything. Like, he could just be expanding Restore, or all sorts of things.
Problem is, he's a bit too old for what we need, really. I mean, he means well. I don't doubt any of that.
He's almost 68, isn't he?
Yeah,
so he's considerably older even than an old bastard like me. But he seems pretty fit, I've got to say.
I know, but for radical action, you need the energy of a younger man. That's where we're at.
But he's got some good younger men.
I know, I hope
just
so. Yeah,
beneath him in Restore Britain, he does have some good people.
Yeah,
and if he doesn't make the start, they're going to find it much more difficult to do that on their own.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's I think we're in the waiting period, really, at the moment with this. See, the Robert Jenrick thing was what tipped him over. Like, no, reform really are just going to be Tory 2.0. Yeah. I mean, if he's just thinking like an expanded Restore, I don't know where we go from there, really.
Alban,
because it's like how do you? I'm quite on board with the strategy behind Restore. The idea that you just sort of shape politics through sort of pressure and consensus. But the problem is that if reform's just going to go down this road where they are literally just the new edge of the uniparty, then it's just a captured political institution at that point, and there's nothing to be gained by trying to push rhetoric into that sphere, because there's already going to be too much pressure in there from their own points. You do at that point just need a party, something that operates as a vehicle to inject this stuff into Whitehall.
Yeah, because like any of these pressure groups, unless they already have establishment support, they're just told no. Doesn't matter how popular something is. They just no. And that's that. Well, that's that.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
the
like
only
with
risk-
Restore, sorry, I was going to say, I think with Restore also, I think he overestimated the goodwill of MPs just in general towards the country.
Mm. Yeah.
Rupert Lowe, to be fair, is an old-fashioned English country gentleman, really. So yeah, I get why he probably overestimated the goodwill of MPs.
Yeah.
But and I don't think he can start a party now that by the next general election can rival reform. But he could start something, and that would allow the younger men under him to have a start, and that I think is the vital thing.
Yeah.
I think the play currently, and you could bookmark this. I think that Labour will get Andy Burnham. He'll win the by-election. There'll be a leadership, and he'll become leader of the Labour Party. Now, between now and then, depending what happens, you could see a rerun of what happened with Mark Carney in Canada, where it looked like the Liberals were going to be wiped out, and Polyev, or whatever he's called, was going to win. And because he was somewhat MAGA Trump aligned, and then suddenly Trump said, "Oh, we're going to take Canada. Canada's going to be the 51st state." It energized, Canadians, and particularly, for some reason, Liberals and conservative type Canadians to say, "Well, screw you," and then vote for Carney. I think, and I know this. I think it could happen here if if Farage isn't too careful, if Reform aren't too careful. And I think the problem is because, unfortunately, Farage is quite tight with Trump. He is tight. Rupert Lowe isn't. I could see something like that happening, where Farage, because if Farage publicly sort of turns on Trump a bit, you know what Trump is like. He might even start attacking Farage, and for some reason,
I don't see that, William. I don't see that in Britain. I'll tell you what, mate. Boomers in Britain are pretty pro-American. They really are, and there is no possibility whatsoever of even Donald Trump turning around and saying, "We're going to make Britain a 51st state." Even Donald Trump won't do that. All right. You may have noticed, and we spoke about this just before you joined us, that Trump actually even climbed down a bit on his statements about NATO allies in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I saw that.
Specifically
Yeah.
about Britain. Trump is not going to do something that stupid. And even if he did, British boomers and British normies are quite pro-American. They really are, mate.
I don't know.
And I know more of them than you do, I suspect.
I don't know about that. I'm with Will on this.
Well, I'd say we'll check in with this in a year's time. In the what was the stream 255, and we'll check in a year, and this time next year or what have you, and I guess we'll see what's been said, what's happened, because that is the bad option though. That scenario is like a really, really bad scenario. Really bad scenario. And the trouble is, Farage does have a habit of, when he's on a winning streak, to fuck it all up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know about the Chagos reversal.
Yeah, listen, I know Trump. I know Farage was against that. And I think most British people were, most military normies were against that because it doesn't make any sense at all from a British point of view, let alone the Americans.
I mean, he went over to America when it was like first happening and tried like begging Trump for that, and Trump just said, "Oh no, we're happy with it." Back then, I don't know. It's all weird.
Yeah, to be fair,
how DL do you think Trump had gone into that? That's like
that's what I was going to say though. That supposedly, I mean, what it looked like as well when I went back and watched it, they kind of ambushed. Ambushed is a strong word, but they approached Trump with it during a press conference, so that he essentially would probably just kind of come out with the same platitude, which was that, oh well, we trust the British government to do what they think's right. So, David Lammy, who was foreign secretary at the time, was sitting there saying, oh, well, depending on what Trump says is whether we'll decide to scrap it or not. But of course, they made sure that they asked him at a point where he wasn't going to have some advisor immediately say, oh, no, don't agree to that. That's a bad idea. Or potentially say it was a good idea, whichever. So I think they did kind of try to tilt the board in their favor on that one a little bit. To sort of get the outcome they wanted, because it doesn't really seem like a move that's particularly in America's favor. Not that it's like a huge smear to them either. It's not particularly great to give territory over to someone that's sort of in league with their geopolitical rival that they have.
And Mauritius is kind of like very heavily influenced and financed by the Chinese Communist Party. So Although, of course, if two-tier care has his way, Mauritius will also be heavily financed by British taxpayers, as well as the Chinese Communist Party. So, okay. I'm not fashionable on the British real right anymore because I'm not a fan of the Chinese Communist Party. I fucking hate them, to be honest. But anyway,
I think we're realizing the people who really pull all the strings are the Mauritians.
Yeah, they run
They're
the world.
at the center of everything. Yeah,
the guys we gave independence in, I think, 1970 or 1971, and they didn't even want it really, but we gave it to them anyway because the British government was just running away from everything back then. But anyway, Mitch, did you have anything you wanted to say about Rupert Lowe, etc.? Because I know you were quite interested in this because you're kind of leaving Reform.
Yeah, like at the moment, I probably won't. I don't know. At the moment, I'm just kind of thinking, well, I've sent 2 emails to Reform, but I might just think, you know what, I might, because you got the fact it's like a couple of weeks' time from now that if renew to renew my membership or not, and I'm sort of thinking, I mean, if they're like I don't really trust Reform, but at the same time, I'd rather be inside the pen. Right, rather be inside the tent pissing out than outside it pissing in if there's nothing else. So it's kind of like, well, it's like Ben Habib, for example, he set up that Advanced UK party specifically for Rupert to take over.
Yeah.
So it's not. I mean, they've got like 40,000 members, so it's not like there's nothing out there like Rupert. But that's the thing, like Rupert, it's not the same with Enoch Powell back in the 60s, where he just didn't want to lead a political party.
Yeah.
And, well, how well did that go out for us?
Yeah.
Just
exactly.
100% agree with you, Mitch. Sometimes somebody has to step up to the plate. They do. And, we have all these people on our side of the fence, or kind of on our side of the fence, who go on about elite theory and all the rest of it. Well, you need an elite to step up to the plate if you're going to provide some leadership. I desperately hope Rupert Lowe says, I'm going to form some sort of political grouping. Because if he doesn't, I'm going to hold my nose and vote Reform at the next general election. And I can, because I've got a house in England and my son lives in it. So, but yeah, I hope Rupert Lowe does something because he's about my last political hope for Britain, to be honest. Like if he fucks up, I don't think reform will do anything useful on their own without being pushed behind them and having their feet held to the fire a bit. I don't think they'll do anything really, because they won't get rid of the huge amount of civil servants who need to be booted out and sacked if Britain's going to change seriously. But that's just my view. You guys may think otherwise. If you do, please say so now. And also, if you've got anything you would like to shill in terms of your channel or anything else, now's the time to do it, guys.
Me and Mercian, we're starting a new show on Tuesdays on Mercian's channel. That's it's kind of he wants to sort of take up where sort of unpopular opinions was sort of recreate that a bit. So that's going to be on Tuesday.
I'd be up for joining you on that one, depending what other guests you have on me. But yeah,
we don't have so far. It's just me and him. We don't have anyone else planned. But yes, sort of rotating.
I'd be up to be a guest on that for sure. You two are quite entertaining. I'll say that, and we don't totally agree, but I think we do probably 90%.
Yeah.
Yep. Other people, anything you want to plug, guys? William, you want to plug your channel?
For me.
William, want to plug your channel?
I think he's gone.
Oh.
I think William must be AFK. Okay. We'll come back to this. Mitch, anything you want to plug, mate?
Nah, nothing for me.
All right. Well, we'll come back to William Granville in a minute, because if William doesn't come back, I'll say go and check out William Granville's channel on YouTube. He's got some good stuff on there. Go and check it out. And he's also a supporter of what's that group called, Outman? The Castle guys?
Pendragon Society.
Yeah,
The Pendragon Society. Thank you. Run by a good guy. The guy who's in the charge of that. I don't like everyone involved in it, but the guy who runs it is a good bloke. So yeah, that would be good. Freedom Loving Lolix, you have a Discord server. You said about it earlier. I do have a Discord server, but it's an invitation only Discord server. And that the reason for that is even that invitation only Discord server got infiltrated by a lefty who someone else, not me, invited. And yes, I kicked him out, and I also kicked out the person who invited him. But you have to be quite careful. I've been running my Discord for 6 years, I think, maybe even more now. And there's less than 60 people in it because it is invitation only. And the
small,
only people...
tight-knit, elite institution.
Exactly.
Invitation
exactly.
An army of pens.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, that's the aim anyway. But anyone who's followed this channel for a long time will have noticed that we have maybe 10 people who stream out of that 60. So, 10, maybe 11. But yeah, I wish I could get more people to come on stream. I do think the people in my Discord are genuine and good guys. And, you won't see our guys slagging off other people on the right or doing stupid nonsense, because we just don't do that. And that's the whole point of having a closed Discord, is that only people who are known get invited in there. Known and trusted, I might add. But I'm in trouble at the moment. There are people on the right who are not talking to me, and it's largely because I thought Lady Charlotte was dead, because she was in an induced coma for 6 months, and somehow even though I asked every single person I knew who knew her, including quite a few people who had met her in real life. Even though I did that, and but I didn't guess she was in induced coma for 6 months, and somehow that makes me a bad person. I'm not sure why. What I gained by that, I don't know. Right? I don't think I gained anything really. I've certainly lost now, but I didn't gain anything in the first place. The only reason I even spoke about it was I didn't want people to forget my friend. And you know, Lady Charlotte apparently is alive. Good. I hope she is. The world's a better place with Lady Charlotte in it. And I could have told you her real name if I wanted to, because I knew her that well. So, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I don't get why I'd be angry with you. You know, it's not like you're
I don't know.
slagging
I mean,
her off.
apparently, not realizing someone was not dead,
I mean,
but in induced coma for
if
6 months,
if it had
evil.
been if it had been, oh, I hear Lady Charlotte's dead, good riddance sort of thing, but it certainly wasn't that. So
No, and the day before there was going to be a memorial stream for her.
Talk about timing.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have made that timing better myself if I'd planned it. I really couldn't have. But if I say that, of course, people will say, oh, I'm having a go at her family, which I'm not. But anyway, I don't.
We're happy she's alive, even if.
I'm just happy
even if she is
alive.
angry at us.
Yeah, if she fucking hates me, I don't care. If she's alive, that makes me happier. Even if she hates me, is my friend. So there we go. Whatever she may think, but whatever. But yeah, okay. Let's have a look at our entropy. I think there's only one. Garen, who is a regular supporter of the channel. Thank you so much, Garen. $5 US, and he just says hello. And he just says hello. Thank you, Garen. It's much appreciated. But yeah. All right. William, are you back yet? No. William Grenville, are you back yet? Doesn't seem to be. All right, check out William Grenville's channel. You can also put in AI Shia Tory, and it will come up. It will come up. You can find it on YouTube, and you can also follow William on X. I think we're done. All right, I don't know what we're going to do on Wednesday. Mitch and I have been talking a bit about doing. Was it Edward III, Mitch?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been talking a bit about doing Edward III. We might, depends what other ideas come up in the next day or two. But yeah, we'll be back on Wednesday for a Splendid Isolation history stream, which I'm happy to say are becoming more popular. I actually like the history streams more than I like these ones, because naturally speaking, I'm a historian. This stuff, I think it's really important, but I'm not good at it. You know, as William said earlier, I get angry when you talk about grooming gangs. But then again, I think all British guys, real Anglo-Celtic British guys, should get angry when you talk about grooming gangs.
Yeah, it's just that you don't want to sound like an angry man getting angry at clouds or at headlines or something.
Oh no.
A bunch of times.
No. Adamant, it's just, you know what, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old girls, they're little girls.
Yeah, but you know, we've covered it enough times. We don't have to.
They should be playing with dolls and not being worried about that shit, you know?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's just me. I'll tell you what, like I was in the SADF in Africa, and I don't think I ever, and I certainly never deliberately did anything bad to women and children. Never once. Not black African women, children, not even communist Swapo, women and children. Never did. Just didn't. Wasn't my style. Didn't let my men do it either. And they were a bit more dubious because they were white guys.
That's a real problem there in that whole continent, really.
Yes. But yeah, you know, women and children, as far as I'm concerned, you try and involve the. Yes, sometimes mistakes happen. Sometimes bad things happen. Aerial bombing is different. You know, big artillery bombardments. But if you're an infantry soldier, you don't have to do that shit. Mostly, you can make a mistake sometimes. Absolutely, you can. You know, you can fire into a building and there's women and kids in the building, and you didn't know that.
I thought you were talking about the rape. I'm thinking, what?
No,
sometimes that just happens. What?
No, not at all. Not at all, Darren. But you know, and I can say that about the other white guys in the SADF, be they Afrikaners or English speakers, and most of them were Afrikaners. If you were a woman and child, they weren't going to do anything deliberately bad to you. They just didn't. They were civilized human beings, you know.
They're no threat. They're not a threat to you.
Exactly.
Although I do really feel for like all the troops who went to like Afghanistan and they've got to deal with child suicide bombers. Because
and female suicide bombers too, right? That happened.
Yeah, and they don't give you an option, and that would be hard to live with.
And the other thing that happens is that, you know, you will get a guy sniping at you from the window of a house, and you don't know that there's his whole family in that house or somebody else's family. You just don't know.
Yeah.
How can you? You haven't got X-ray vision, you know. But you know, there is the point that collateral damage happens, but it doesn't usually happen deliberately, you know.
Yeah.
That's all I'm trying to get across here.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right, guys. Thank you very much to my guests this evening, Mitch and Outman, William Grenville, and Tharian. Thank you very much. You're always most welcome, gentlemen. We'll see you on Wednesday for our history stream. In the meantime, do not let the bastards grind you down. And I don't have a tune to play us out tonight because I'm getting really bored with starting it and then it takes 10 minutes to play. So I haven't done it tonight. But if you want good music, go and check out my good friend, Patriotic Archive, member of my Discord. And he's got a really good music channel with lots of patriotic, naval, military, and folk songs and what have you. Mostly British, but a few others. Go and check it out. And go well, guys.
Good night.